Hello, Motorsport fans. Don't forget to subscribe, turn on your notifications, and like this video so we can keep the channel going. And hello, Anne Bradshaw. Welcome to the show.
And hello, Ben Potter. Nice to see you.
It's great to see you. It's been a while. You must be on summer break now for August.
Yeah, we had our last race in Hungary last weekend, and now F1 obviously have got 3 weeks off, but we've got 2 months because our next race is Singapore with W Series. So we're not going racing again until the end of September, but we've still got plenty to do to keep us occupied.
And that was fantastic news that we heard recently about the W Series finally coming to Asia. That is quite a big step for the series, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it's a region we always wanted to race in. Very important for everything, for commercially and for racing. So we couldn't go to Japan. The logistics just became too difficult and too expensive, which was very sad. But then Singapore came up and offered us a slot, which we're thrilled about. Can't say thank you enough for the organisers there, and we can't wait to get there. We've got two Asian drivers in Juju Noda and Bianca Bustamante. So yeah, it'd be great to have home races for them, and I think it will be very exciting.
It certainly will. And I mean, if there is a race in Asia, Singapore's the one, party capital of Formula One, I would say.
We don't party. We're serious. I mean, we're all youngsters. We go to bed early or not.
Yes, going back to bed at 9 o'clock in the next morning, I suppose, right?
Yeah, that's early.
One of the things I try to focus on with this podcast is that a lot of us motorsport people, we know each other, we see each other in the paddocks in different series all over the world, but we don't actually know the real people and how they started. And I always wanted to ask you how you got started in motorsport, because you've been in motorsport for a while, and you're a trailblazer for women, um, one of, if not the first woman to work in Formula One. How did you get involved?
Well, it's a family thing. I have a family who love motorsport, so that was my default sport. Some families like football, some people, like cricket or rugby, or it was out of motorsport. My brother loved it. He did a bit of amateur rallying, and so I went to a lot of races as a child, all through the years, and got to know people. And a very good friend who had a company called J Brand Racewear. In fact, he was his partner was Paddy Hopkirk, who sadly died recently. And yeah, we used to see him at races, and he ran the Yardley BRM motorhome. And he rang me one day, knowing that I was getting a bit fed up with my journalistic work for a local newspaper, and just said, "Look, my girlfriend's just been to see her ex-boss, and he needs somebody to work for him." And that was the British Racing and Sports Car Club back in 1971. So I went and met the boss. We chatted about motorsport for 2 hours, and that was it. And yeah, I haven't looked back since. Been involved in the sport ever since then. It was quite exciting to suddenly work in the sport that I really loved.
Yeah, and because you already had a journalist background, right?
That's right. Yes, I was training as the journalist, and I mean, I loved it, but you know, after a time, especially with local journalism, you do the births, deaths, and marriages, and it just seemed the right time to move on, and the great opportunity of a sport I loved.
And what other series were you working in before you got into Formula One?
Before I got into Formula One, I was obviously I work in the BRSCC. We actually organised everything from Formula One to Formula Ford and sports car racing. So I saw a lot of that. Then I went back to journalism for a few years with Autosport, and I was assistant rallies editor, which was great. And then I went to the RACMSA, the governing body of motorsport in the UK, and I did everything. I did racing, I did rallying, I did rallycross, I did karting, even the London to Brighton veteran car run, and that was fun because, as I say, I did everything, and including being the press officer for the British Grand Prix.
Okay, great. And Was there, I mean, with all the different race series that you've worked in, is there a particular series that excites you a bit more than others? I mean, being involved in rallying in the 70s, that must have been a thrill ride in itself.
Yeah, I mean, we had some great drivers, and so people like Hannah Mikula and the Flying Finns, and yeah, and it was great because rallying then was you'd set off for 5 days and have a couple of nights out of bed. You'd be in the middle of a forest in the middle of the night in Portugal or somewhere in Kenya or Greece, and that was great fun because, to say, we were rushing around the countryside the way that they were, trying to catch up with them, find the stories, way before mobile phones and computers. So it was all a matter of finding a driver and asking what had happened.
Yeah, they one thing that some people when I've been telling people that you'll be on the podcast, and one of the most popular requests for me to ask you is about how to get involved in F1, but we'll touch on that later. I suppose back in those days, and considering you were already with the was it the
BRACC, British
BRCC?
Racing Sports Car Club.
Oh, right. How did you manage to find yourself in Formula One from there?
Well, it was mainly actually from organising the British Grand Prix press office, and I worked with a company called CSS who used to do the PR for our sponsors, Marlborough, and I got to know them very well. And then they when they got the contract with Canon to do the Williams sponsorship, they then contacted me and said, "Look, we need somebody to go and do the PR. Will you join us?" And say I'd worked with them very closely. So Andrew Marriott, who I know is still around interviewing people, Tony Jardine, those sort of people. So yeah, I joined them, and they had an exclusive contract with Williams. So that's how I got it into F1.
And did you, because you were pretty much the first woman to have a prominent position in Formula One, being the PR and communications officer for the Williams team. In those days, you hardly the women had other roles with motorhomes and hospitality and things, but was there, having such a big position in an F1 team, and especially in 1985 when Williams were starting to hit their peak and fighting for the championships, was it an easy transition to get into, and or was it difficult going into a predominantly male dominated industry?
I never even thought about it, to be honest with you. It was easy. I was employed to do a job and I did it. If I hadn't done that job properly, then it would have been difficult, I'm sure. But no, I mean, I was welcomed. Nobody treated me any differently, which is a good thing. I didn't want them to say, "Oh, you're a woman, we'll be nicer to you." I got the same treatment as if I'd been a man. And they appreciated what I was doing, and I never had a problem. As I say, I was dealing with, obviously, the media. I interface with all members of the team, mechanics, engineers, team owners, and that's what. And they just, as long as I got on with my job, they didn't say, "Oh, well, you're a woman, you might do it differently, or we'll be nicer to you, or not so nice." They just treated me as one of them, which is what you want. You don't want to be singled out because you're a woman. You want to just be allowed to get on and do the job. And if you go to them, be shown the respect that they'd show a man. And that's exactly how I found it all my working years, these 51 years in the sport.
Wow. Did you did you feel like you were doing something, you were achieving something important? You were a trailblazer for women in motorsport. Did that ever cross your mind at all?
No, I was just very lucky I was doing a job I loved. I didn't see it as, trailblazing. I mean, I was just working in motorsport, and it was something I had a passion for, and I was just one of the luckiest people, So, yeah, quite the opposite. No, I thought, gosh, this is pretty good, and just get on with your job. Don't think anything else about the fact that a lot of people would give the right arm to do what I was doing.
Yes, true. Yeah, even today. And You had after your first year with Williams in '85, you had a short stint with JPS where you were working with the late great Ayrton Senna. Um, how how was that? Because you've worked with Senna twice. You worked with him again in Williams in 1994. Um, you've worked with many legends that we'll cover later, but with Ayrton Senna, you've seen him in two different um, eras of his career. With JPS trying to fight for his first world championship, a young up and coming star, and then with Williams in '94, already with 3 championships under his belt. Did you notice, was there actually a difference in the man between those two eras in his career?
Oh, big difference. I mean, he's young. He hadn't won his championships. He was determined. I mean, he was very intense, a very spiritual person, very intense, very spiritual, and you just knew that what he wanted to do was win a world championship, win races, and win a world championship. And I don't think any F1 driver has any other goal but to go and win a championship. And even those who might find themselves in not so successful teams, that's still their goal. And yeah, so that they will do anything they can to make them the best drivers. Whether it's working with engineers, lots of testing that, and Ayrton was that person. He just had this burning desire to achieve that, and I don't think anybody doubted that one day he would be a world champion because he had a natural ability. But yeah, for him that was the path that he was set on, and yeah, he wasn't going to be diverted from it.
And when you got back to Williams, was that in '87, I believe?
Yeah,
Uh,
I just did that 1 year because the agency I was working with, we did both of them, and that was a bigger account, the JPS. So I moved on to that for a year, and then yeah, Frank asked if he could have me back for '87, which I was very happy to go.
so around that time, I mean, it had only been a few years that you'd broken into F1 as PR communications. Going back to Williams, which were the world champion team, still fighting for championships with Piquet. Mansell was still fighting. Uh, was was that a lot of pressure and a lot of stress to take that on to get back into such a dominant team?
Uh, the more stress was the fact that the two drivers did not like each other. That was the biggest stress, dealing with Mansell and Piquet. And Piquet didn't help himself by some of the comments he made. I mean, he liked to stir things up, and there was no love lost between the two of them at all. We had all sorts of things. He'd come out and tell the media that Nigel's wife was ugly, and then Ayrton was gay, and all these sort of things. And he was a natural joker. Um, when we were in Mexico, and Nigel had a tummy upset, and so Nelson went into the toilet in the garage and stole the toilet paper, those sort of things. Um, and then there was a big to do in Hungary when they didn't share settings, and they told them that Nigel's side of the garage that they were going to use one thing and they weren't, and so there was no love lost there. They weren't ever going to send each other Christmas cards.
Was it
But
similar? Sorry.
I say, but that always makes it ultra competitive. If you've got two people fighting, then they're pushing each other.
Yeah, and
And yeah, Frank loved drivers who were pushing each other.
that's the common thing in F1, isn't it? There's the great championship winning teams and drivers are the ones whose teammates are fighting each other for that 1/10 of a second. We've seen it before. Was it very similar at Williams with Piquet Mansell as it was with Prost and Senna at McLaren? I had Peter Burns on the show a while back, and he would tell me that when he was looking after Prost and Senna at McLaren, when they had to do sponsorship appearances, they would have to start off in separate rooms, and he would go into one room and say, "Senna, this is what you say, leave it at that. Prost, this is what you say, leave it at that." and basically keep them at arm's length. Was that
Yeah.
what you had to do?
More or less, it was best if they were kept at arm's length. Yeah, yeah. I think that was a very good way of Peter explaining it. You just yeah. Or if you possibly could do them in separate events, you know.
Was the I mean, you were coming into Formula One in a time where there was really no structure in terms of PR and communications. It was kind of fly by night, wasn't it? Um, yeah, it was eh, compared to say the 90s when it was starting to become a lot more stricter. Uh, was it more difficult back in the 80s, or was it more fun in the 80s to be doing what you were doing compared
In a
to the
way,
90s?
yeah, in a way, it was fun because you went there and you'd know that you particularly if you had people like Nigel, you had the British press who all wanted to talk to him, or you had Nelson, you had the Brazilian press. So you had to somehow manufacture it so that they could talk to them. But in this day and age, you get a schedule and engineering when they have the lunch, sponsorship events, PR events, F1 events. They're all in a standard format, and you know that you have half an hour at this break to put them in front of the media. Then they have to go back to engineering, or they have to go to the FI press conference. But those we didn't have any of those sort of things. And in fact, while there were press conferences for pole position, the driver didn't have to go, and if he didn't want to go, he wouldn't go. And so you just had to sort of try and kind of waylay them between when they finished their engineering going off to have lunch or something. Luckily, they didn't have rooms to hide in, so that was a good thing. But you had to grab them when you couldn't, stick them down with journalists. So it was a bit of fun. It was stressful because you thought, oh god, another fight this weekend. But you got there and it happened. But yeah, that was. Yeah, I think I get lots of my friends who go, "Oh God, I've had a really busy weekend." I felt like saying, "At least you know what you're going to get achieved." I never knew I was going to achieve it. I was just praying I did, but we used to get it there in the end.
Yeah, I remember that in the 80s and even going into the early 90s, the post race and post qualifying driver interviews, it was basically just Murray Walker sitting in a chair with a microphone with an FIA simple backdrop. There it was very basic, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, and and I say back in the 80s, you didn't have if you didn't want to go, it wouldn't turn up. I mean, I'll always remember in Detroit in '86, and Ayrton was on pole. And I said, right, we're going to the press conference. And he wouldn't go because it was the World Cup and he wanted to watch Brazil play. So he wouldn't go to the press conference because he wanted to stay there and watch Brazil play in the World Cup.
Wonder how did they do in 86?
Hmm?
How did Brazil do in 1986?
Well, that evening they lost. So I actually was very happy they lost.
Oh, so he could focus 100% on the
No,
race.
I just it pissed me off by sorry, I should perhaps shouldn't do that.
That's
It
all right.
annoyed me by not coming to the press conference. So I was really pleased his team hadn't won. And I told him so. He took it in good form.
So what for those of the us who don't know, your the role that you had with the F1 teams as PR and communications director, what was that? What did that entail? What was your race weekend?
I love these titles that we all have these days. I was the press officer. I I always laugh because all these people have such grand titles. You look and you see all these titles and think, no, they're just a press officer. I was a press officer then, and so that's what we did. You're the person between the team and the media, whether it's team owner like Frank, whether it's drivers like Piquet and Senna and Prost, and the thing you had to do was make sure that whatever you wanted to get over, the story got over. And the nice thing was that we had a very good working relationship with the media, and they'd all come en masse, sit down, do their interview. They'd all go back en masse, write the same interview, then they'd come and see me and check that there was anything else that they'd missed out, or if they'd put anything wrong, and that was it. So it was quite interesting, because, to say, these days you don't get that, because it's all social media, and the moment they've done an interview, 2 minutes later, it appears on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter, or all these social channels. So that everybody was a lot more relaxed, because nothing was so instantaneous, and there was competition on the track, but the media all they just wanted to have the same story. Then if somebody went up rogue and did a different story, then they're all in trouble, because their editor would want to know why they hadn't got it as well. So it was all in the best interest to write the same story.
Yeah, that's an interesting point you bring up in terms of back in those days, pre-internet and social media, the journalists actually worked with the teams and would even ask permission to write about what they wanted to and made sure everything was above board. And now with social media, like you said, everyone has an opinion, whether we like it or not. And within 2 minutes, something's up with an opinion, and they haven't even spoken to the team or the drivers or the managers or anything like that. And more often than not, the poster is wrong or aggravating a situation.
Yeah,
Is that something you're seeing a lot of in this day and
yeah,
age?
yeah. I find it very sad, particularly when people who have an opinion and now have a platform and troll people or write awful things. I find that very sad, because it's not what should be happening. It's, as far as I'm, social media should be out there to help educate people. And it's lovely that within seconds somebody can go online and find out what happened. But it's when it gets turned around, or people start sort of trolling those sort of things. It's I mean, there are some amazing blogs and people who put their stories up there that really are great. They go into depths, and let's be honest, nowadays you could sit at home and write just as good a story as you can from going to a racetrack, because everything, there's virtual press conferences, virtual this, virtual that. But yeah, I do find that the social media, the way they abuse it. I mean, like, for instance, the abuse that Nicholas Latifi got last year,
Mm.
when he was, obviously, it went off the track in Abu Dhabi, and it was just despicable, and that's what was wrong, and sad, that people think that that's okay. And of course, you're high profile, so the higher profile you are, the more they think they can try and knock you down. But yeah, it's a different world, and yeah, some ways good, some ways bad. But I think social media should be used for good and not for bad.
Well, yeah, easier said than done as well, I suppose. But
I
does
think
that
that boat sailed.
Yeah, true, true. But does that also mean that press officers now are more in damage control mode, and they have to be more selective with who they share information with, or what platforms they promote?
Yeah, I mean, I think damage control is right. I mean, obviously, these days you have the communications department, and then you have a social media and digital department who are just doing all those social platforms, and they have got to be more careful than even we are on things they put up there. Even though they put so few words, if they put one word wrong, and they really can get so much aggravation from fans, sort of really putting some awful stuff up there, and that's sad. But yeah, no, you have to think twice about everything. You can't really say, oh, we'll talk to this person, and then we can talk to them afterwards, and if they've got something wrong, we can tell them, because that's gone. It's up
Yeah,
on on.
even with the drivers, there's these days there's got to be some kind of training and coaching for the media in relation to what they can, what they should say, what they shouldn't say. Whereas, you know, you being in Formula One in the glory days of the 80s, where there was no such thing as political correctness, right? And the drivers just spoke
Yeah.
off the chin and said what they wanted to say. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, does that make you? Does that kind of difference uh, make you think that the '80s were a better era for Formula One?
I can't say that because the social media situation is in every walk of life. It's in every sport. It's in everything you do, and it's just a natural progression of where we've gone into this world. Yeah, I mean, let's be honest. Say, and you look at how many people had access to Formula One stories in those days. You could watch it on your TV or you can buy a newspaper, but now we have so many fans out there who can access us. You know, social media, TV, all the various platforms, Netflix, Drive to Survive. And I can't say, that we had a better time because now we have a bigger audience and people are becoming more engaged because they can become more engaged. So yeah, you take the good with the bad
Yeah.
and yeah, you have to move on. And that's the world we live in. And it's really great when you see new fans coming along because they're able to engage. And the people who are horrible, they are such a small percentage. I think you just have to look at them and feel sorry for them. But we have some great new fans, youngsters. I noticed the younger, particularly the W Series, the young girls who are suddenly coming, and we're seeing them in our paddock, and I see them there, and I see families, and I think that's lovely. They're great. They're great to have new fans and yeah, fans for the future, and hopefully their children then become fans. So it's I think it's good.
In your illustrious F1 career, you have worked with many legendary drivers and world champions: Nigel Mansell, Nelson Piquet, Ayrton Senna, Prost, my childhood hero, Vettel, Damon Hill as well, and their teammates.
Yeah.
I'm sure not all F1 champions or drivers are coming from the same mold, and I'm sure there's drivers that have been a lot easier to work with and not so easy to work with. Uh, is there anything you can share with that? Were there drivers that were easier to work with than others?
I mean, Damon was great. He was very easy to work with. He was a lovely guy. Alain Prost, despite everybody saying that he was sort of, very, I don't know what's the word, but very political, he was very easy to work with. But again, there he was when he was with us. He had got nothing to prove.
Mm.
He had won his championships, and he was coming with us for another championship. Everything was going fine, and he was really good guy to work with. Nigel had demons. He thought the world was against him, um, which was a shame. But he'd done it the hard way. He hadn't, way he'd come up into the sport, with selling the house and his wife going off to demonstrate um, cookers for the gas board, whatever it was. Yeah, he'd had some quite big accidents, broken his back, and those sort of things. Um, yeah, no, I think, yeah, of the world champions, Damon was very great. Loved working with Ricardo Patrese. He was a real gentleman. Um, Juan Pablo Montoya was a challenge, but as long as you met him head on, then you could deal with him. And he's one of my best mates and ex drivers, and love him to bits. And he still calls me grandma, and I still call him Monster, and we still have a good laugh. And yeah,
He's the South American fiery temper, right?
oh God, yes, yeah, yeah. But it's funny. It's like you learn with drivers what you need to a bit of would make them do what you want them to. Like, for instance, Jacques Villeneuve. As soon as he got out of the car, he liked a glass of really cold milk and some milk chocolate. So I'd be standing there with it. He also he couldn't wear anything new until it had been washed, and he couldn't wear anything that had been dry cleaned or had fabric conditioner in it. And the number of times he'd come to me and he'd say, these overalls have had a fabric conditioner, and I'd be then sent off to find somebody to wash them and take the fabric conditioner out of them. So you learn what they wanted and what they liked, and then that worked. I mean, Juan Pablo just wanted hundreds of hats to give to his mates, so I used to have to steal all these hats, dozens of them, and then I want you to do this. There's a hat. I want you to do this. There's a hat.
Yeah. Was that? Montoya should have achieved a lot more than he did in F1. Do you think?
Oh gosh, yes. But then he was volatile, and it sort of. I know he left after he didn't like it that they didn't ask Ralph to move over, and then he had a bit of an upset at McLaren, and yeah, he's volatile, but lovely, funny person with a great family and a very quick son now, and yeah, fun to work with. But yeah, I wish he'd been sort of longer in F1 and won more. But there you go. But he didn't do too badly in IndyCar.
Well, he's one of two current drivers that could still grab the Triple Crown, right? So Montoya did Montoya do Monaco? Yeah,
Yeah, he's good
he got
Monaco.
yeah, he got the Monaco Grand Prix, he got the Indy 500. Now
So
all
he's
he needs is Le Mans 24 hours.
yeah.
Same as Alonso. Alonso's got Le Mans 24 hours under his belt, the Monaco Grand Prix under his belt. All he needs is the Indy 500.
Yeah.
Mm. And they've still got time to do it. Well, just about some time to do it, I suppose. And you touched on something interesting there about the drivers' demands. I mean, we've all heard of rock stars with their riders having lists of absolutely ridiculous demands. Is that well, you mentioned Jacques had his demands there. Were there any other drivers that had some obscene or crazy demands that you had to look after?
No, it's just what you worked out that made them happy. They just want just those things you'd say, "Oh, can I get you anything?" "Oh, I'd like milk," and you just learn to work out what it is. I mean, they're really not rock star demands. They're sort of like kids' demands, aren't they? "Oh, I want some ice cold milk and a bar of chocolate," or I want a cap."
And you were
When
with
when you
sorry.
when you consider these millionaires and that's all they want.
Yeah, true. And you also worked with Vettel. That was at BMW, right?
Yeah, I knew him first of all when he was in Formula BMW. And he used to come to races with BMW Sauber, and then obviously he did his first race with us, and I was there then. So yeah, I got on really well with him. He's very anglicised. His mother-in-law is English, and she taught him all English sense of humour, and he loved Little Britain and Harry Enfield and the Beatles, and
Yeah, his Joker comes out sometimes in the media as well. It makes him a
yeah,
lovable character.
yeah,
And
he's lovely.
were you sad to hear of his retirement last week?
Yeah, I was saddened. I mean, funny because I saw him on on Friday afternoon. I saw him, and we had quite a chat. And yeah, no, I was. I'm not sad because he's doing what he wants to do, and I just think it's lovely. I think that he's an honest person, and I always laugh at his PR lady always tells me that he gets cross with her in the morning because he says that she shouldn't shower as long as she does. She's got to have shorter showers, and he's passionate. He wants the best for the world, and I said to him, I said, just good for you. You're going to do what you want to do. You've got a young family, and I mean, he's been in it a long time. So, but it's not as though he's going off because he wants to go off and do something else, or he wants to use his platform to make the world a better place. And I think that what him and Lewis are doing now is so good. But we should be very proud that we've got two sort of former world champions are determined to go out there and push for diversity, push for the environment, push for people who are perhaps abused and things like that and neglected. And I think it's great. And for the LGBTQ plus community, isn't it lovely that somebody's out there saying, hang on a second, these people, we're all the same. Let's just embrace everybody, and we race as one.
Yeah, true. Yeah, that's what are your thoughts? You've just said you're a strong supporter of that, but there's also a lot of criticism about these star drivers mixing politics too much with the sport. What are your thoughts on that?
It's very difficult if you want to get a message over, which is slightly political, not to use your platform. And I think that when you're in Formula One, when you're in there, it's very difficult to differentiate politics and sport, because let's be honest, we go to places like Saudi Arabia. We go to places that have very poor human rights.
Yeah.
And so, they use us, so we'll use them. So there are some political things, people can't do too far, but I think we have to be aware of our platform, and our platform is used to promote perhaps not the nicest people in the world. So why not use our platform to say what is wrong with other people?
Yeah, it's the speaking of liberty. Do you think they're doing a great job? And I mean, you've seen how basic the media has been over the decades in F1. You've been in the heart of it. Bernie never really accepted the internet or social media. What's your take on Liberty's involvement so far?
Oh, I mean, I think that, obviously they signed the Netflix and Drive to Survive, which is amazing. They have some very, very, very proactive people on social media, comms, who we work closely with. No, I mean, I applaud everything they've done, everything that they've achieved. We've been desperate to, all the teams have been, and people like WCS, desperate to break into the American market. And not only did we have one race, but we're coming up to 3. And that's such a big market. I mean, when we went to Miami last year, our first race in America, for this season, it was unbelievable. I mean, we'd started off by going to Austin last year, and we thought, the media, we got there, but I tell you, we were swamped by media requests. ESPN, the New York Times, all those, they were just so keen to talk to us. And that's, yeah. And I say, we thought we'd really cracked it when we were in Austin, but it was a step up in Miami. And yeah, I mean, we can't fault that. That's the growing audience. And how many years have we all said, oh, we're never going to be successful in America until we get an American driver? And now Liberty have shown us that, yeah, you can be successful in America, and you don't need an American driver.
Exactly. I mean, yeah, Formula One in America was always on and off, wasn't it, during the 80s and 90s? They just couldn't get it right. But Liberty, with their experience in Hollywoodizing and building other major American sporting events, even I was talking to Tantri Moksani on Monday. We were talking about how awesome the new graphics are on TV. I mean, that does wonders that Liberty had brought in. It's absolutely awesome.
I mean, you can almost feel you're in the car with the driver when you see the onboards there, and then you look at the visuals and the graphics, and now they've it used to be who was quickest in which sector. Now it's who's quickest on which corner. And
Yeah.
the new graphics. Yeah,
And the
no, I mean,
percentage of the driver behind catching the next driver.
I know. I mean, you think, how can? Yeah, no, you just have to look at that and think, oh, that's really good. No, I must admit that all those things and I know how hard those people are working consistently to upgrade everything.
Yeah,
Yeah.
What's the third race then? Is that the New York one?
No,
So
that's
there's
Vegas.
sorry?
Vegas.
Ah, that's right. Yes, Vegas.
Yeah, so
Vegas.
you've got obviously Austin, Miami, and Vegas.
Yeah, that's right. Vegas is coming up this year, isn't it?
Yeah, next year.
Yeah, that's going to be awesome. Did they
Oh,
have we they had a Vegas in the was it the 80s or the
yeah,
70s?
they had it in the car park. It
Right.
wasn't terribly successful.
Were you
I
there?
was No, I wasn't there, but
No.
I know people who were there wasn't the most exciting thing, and everybody who stayed in the casinos gambling, they weren't really interested.
Mm. Yeah, that's going to be an interesting race actually. Another
Oh,
party capital for F1 drivers and the fans.
well, it's the fans and the it's like when you ask a sponsor which races do the guests want to come to, it's Monaco because they want to go partying. Singapore, they want to go partying, and it will be yeah, Vegas.
Is W Series joining them in Vegas?
We haven't got our schedule. Yeah, we haven't got a schedule for next week, but I know Catherine is very, very, very keen for us to go to Vegas. I think she told somebody she'd cut off her right arm to go to Vegas. But no, I mean, yeah, I mean it would be wonderful because I say we have really amazing support in the States and some very great media um, support. And, we have people like Puma who obviously are very big in the States as one of our major sponsors. So, yeah, it's very much so.
Yeah, I noticed you have Heineken as well.
Yeah,
Um,
Puma, yeah.
oh yeah. Uh, Speaking of W Series and equality, women in motorsport, you're heading up the. I'll give you the title again: PR and Communications.
No, I'm the press officer for W Series.
press Press officer for the W Series. Are you? You've been with them since day one. Are you? Are they achieving what they set out to achieve? Have you been impressed with the 2 seasons so far?
Oh, I mean, yes. I mean, when you consider where we started, 2019 alongside DTM, then had to have a year off because of the COVID situation. So we're only, I mean, we're a new setup. We're only young.
Mm.
When you consider that, but we're halfway through our third season, and you can see us in 150 territories on TV. Over the Silverstone weekend, we had a viewership of 1 million.
Wow.
We're we're in the UK. We're the second watched motorsport series. I think we're about the second female series in how many people watched us. Oh no, it's obviously the main aim is to get a female up the ladder into Formula One. And that's what we all want to see. We're not going to hide the fact that if there was Jamie Chadwick, Abby Pulling, one of our drivers was in Formula One, that would be massive. That would be mission accomplished because it's been 47 years since Lella Lombardi. But having said that, we've given these females a platform. We've got Jamie Chadwick as development driver for Williams. We've got Abby Pullen in the academy for Alpine. We've got Alice Powell also in there, who's now out looking for new youngsters for them as a scout. And we've got Jess Hawkins, ambassador, and in there doing some work for Aston Martin. So we've got 4 of our drivers aligned with F1 teams. So that's pretty good that they've all embraced us, embraced our drivers. So I think we're perhaps punching above our weight, but we're working hard on it. And I say the ultimate goal will be a, a female. And let's be honest, say I'm not even turning around and saying if it was a female from another direction
Mm.
that came through another series, because I think that what we're doing is we're highlighting females. we've got 18 drivers, but if we can help highlight all females, and people turn around and say, yeah, why don't we have a female driver? And it might be another driver who's come out of the Ferrari Academy or something that hasn't been through us, but because people are taking female drivers seriously, we might have helped make the path easier for those girls.
It is.
And I think,
Sorry.
I would say, I think we talk to karting clubs, things, and they've never seen more girls going karting than they are now.
Will you say Jamie Chadwick is a development driver for Williams? Has she taken a Williams F1 car around at full throttle yet?
Not yet. No, we hope that they could perhaps put her in at some point, because we have these young driver tests and those sort of things. But she got enough. She got enough super license points, I think, to drive on the track. Yeah. But
So
no.
why hasn't there? What's your view on why we haven't had a female F1 driver for the past 30 odd years in Formula One?
Yeah, I mean, money. The money seems to go to male drivers, for some reason. When I think a woman, perhaps people are nervous in case, oh, well, we know a man's strong enough and they can do it, so why not? Why risk it with a woman? But yeah, I think money has been the sponsorship has not been put into the female sport, and that's a shame.
Because the last driver was Susie Wolff, who I think she had a free practice run
She had a
at one
free
of the
practice with Williams, yeah.
Is there a physical aspect to it as well? Could these W Series drivers in their prime handle the physical demands of a full Grand Prix weekend?
Yeah, I believe they can. There are certain, and there's lots of research goes on and is going on at the moment about different needs of with a car, and there are some things in cars that might be just built for a man and needs to just a slight tweak, so both male and women. But yeah, I mean, and let's be honest, say to be a Formula One driver, you have to train as hard as any Olympic athlete. You can't
Harder.
just turn up, yeah, you can't turn up at the gym one day a week and pull a few weights and then get it in a car. You have to be in there non-stop, 24/7, because the demands on you, the physical demands are so great with G forces, and the cars get quicker, and that sort of thing. So yeah, they all have to work very hard on fitness. But no, I believe that a female could cope with stresses. I mean, Lella Lombardi did.
Mhm. Yeah, she was the only woman to score points in F1, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Was she the one who passed away last year?
She
Didn't she?
passed away. I can't remember how long ago, but yes, she passed away. Yes, she had cancer. I knew
Right.
her. She was super.
Yeah, I was at the PRI Motorsport trade show in America, Indianapolis, a few years back, and I met uh, Jill St. John.
Oh, Lynn.
Lynn St. John, that's right.
Yeah,
Lynn St.
yeah,
John. And she's doing amazing thing for women in motorsport in America.
yeah.
Uh,
No, she came and joined us when we had our very first event at Melk in Austria to choose the drivers. We had about 50 drivers to go through for a second sort of test. She came along and helped us choose them.
oh, right.
Yeah, she's great. Love Lynn. Very. You've got Lynn St. James, who's been very good. Desiree Wilson, Davina Galitza, and they've all been very supportive and been to our races and helped talk to the drivers and give them tips.
Yeah, because I mean, there are more and more women getting involved in F1 in positions. I mean, it all kicked off with Manisha Coltonborn being the team manager of Sauber, and
Right.
then Claire came up through the ranks and was
Yeah.
team manager of Williams. And now, I mean, especially after the Hungarian Grand Prix, we've heard word from both the Red Bull strategist
Yeah.
uh, Schmitz, I think her name was, and also Aston Martin's strategist as well is a woman, and
Yeah.
there's engineers as well along the pit wall there. So it's. Do you think Formula One or motorsport in general is doing enough for the support and promotion of women getting involved?
I think they're working very hard. I mean, I know like Mercedes, they have a I think it's called Accelerate 25 when they want 25% of their workforce to be women. And I think some of them are obviously more out there than others, but I think they're all willing to bringing women in, but some of them are, yeah, more proactive than others. But no, I think they are because I don't think you'll now find a team that doesn't have a female who, in some way or other, works on the car.
Right.
Um,
Yeah. Do we have any mechanics?
I'm sure I saw a mechanic on a wheel of a Williams last weekend. I'm sure I saw work on the front of with I don't know is Alex's or Nick's car, but yeah, I think we do. I mean, like in W Series, we have female mechanics, we have female engineers. When Jamie won her race in France, that was the first win of a female race engineer. Um, and it was a girl I know because I worked with her when she was a mechanic in Formula BMW.
Oh, right.
So yeah, so we've got quite a few, yeah, engineers and not as many as we'd like, but we have quite a few.
And do you? Is there? I want to talk about the. I you look at the W series and the website, and it says we need to see a woman in F1. We need to see more women drivers coming up through the ranks in different series. Right? There's GT racing, there's Indy racing. It doesn't
Yeah.
have to end with Formula One. Um, but the lack of promotion or knowledge of the general public uh, is does that come down to the series itself to build these drivers into a brand and to create a story around it to help that? And I bring this up because last week I read an opinion piece. I've read two opinion pieces in the past week since England won the Euro, the women's Euro final last
Yeah.
week. And everything I've read, I've got the impression, I've interpreted as not an attack, but a kind of blaming on the general public that we're not doing enough to accept women's football. Um, but coming from a sports marketing background, I'm thinking, well, it's not up to us. It's not up to the general public to build women's football or women's motorsport into
Yeah.
something big. Isn't that up to the promoters, the people that run the series to build the story up themselves, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you're right, and that's why we work non-stop on this. I mean, we really do. We're trying to build the profile. We're reaching out. I mean, um, getting on Sky, they are just so proactive, and we're going to them with ideas which they're loving. Yeah, so I mean, Sky is great. Obviously, Channel 4, not so great because we're not live this year, but Sky wanted us, and I think I agree with you. I think it's up to us, and we're working on building these platforms, making them into brands. But the thing is that I think TV needs to do more. Like you know, we say that you know, obviously that game last Sunday, you know, millions watched it, and 87,000 at Wembley. But the trouble is that if you then look and see, well, does the BBC show you when Chelsea are playing Aston Villa or Arsenal playing Manchester United? they're not showing the way they're showing the men's. They're not giving airtime to the women. And so TV needs to be a little more brave and inventive of selling women's games. As I say, I mean, we're very lucky because we're, I suppose, we've got to say that we're a one-off, and we've got so many really great packages for showing people around the world what's going on in W Series. But we do need those sort of other grassroots things to be brought up more, or sort of Premier League games that are not men. Yeah, we have to educate the public. I mean, we're finding that, like for instance, we had Lewis Hamilton asked to come and visit our paddock last weekend. He came down with his team. He came down with his social media people. He then he is a great supporter, and he always watches the races, and he's very friendly with our presenter, Naomi Schiff. And we went back, and he put on all his channels about people supporting us and what they should be doing. By the end of the day, we had 17,000 new followers on our social media channels.
Wow.
And the hits, and also we had journalists ringing saying, "Oh, we've just seen what he does. Can we do it? Can we do an interview with Catherine?" I did an interview with the Eye yesterday. The guy said, "Yeah, we want to do an interview now about how great it is that he's supporting you, and what should happen next." So I think, I agree with you. We can't blame the poor old fans, but we've got to sell it to the fans via TV and via all their different channels, so they can see it as exciting and something that they want to get to know more about.
How about doing some brand building and promotion off the track in terms of creating interesting and controversial maybe stories around the women away from the circuit? Because I mean, a lot of the famous male footballers that you see, I mean, they're only playing football, what, 30, I don't follow it, but what, 30 weekends a year. And a lot of the news that we get from the male footballers is things they're getting up to, good and bad, mostly controversial things off the track. And that's kind of building a following. I mean, would that work for women's motorsport if there was some wagging the dog in terms of spinning some stories to make the women themselves of interest, where the motorsports fans think, oh, hang on, we've got to keep an eye on this one. This is another Montoya blowing his lid or something like that. Would that work?
If you watch the W Series YouTube channels and those sort of things, there's an awful lot of that online. We spend a lot of time away from the track, filming them and doing other things, and at the track. And there's so much content that goes out there that is then that F1 are pushing for us. We're talking about Heineken and Puma. They always, whenever they've got any promotions going, they use our drivers. I mean, Puma had a bus going around New York City wrapped in W Series, and it travels around New York City with our drivers on. It's still traveling around New York City. They did a big promotion in their Puma flagship store. Yeah, Heineken have done stuff with Max Verstappen using our drivers. So there is quite a lot out there, and we get a lot of really good comments from it. And to say, we obviously, with people like Lewis promoting it and F1 promoting it, we're doing well. I mean, okay, we can do more because, to say, yeah, you'd like to put money, but not many of our drivers are like footballers that only do what we're doing. They can't afford to just do sort of 8 weekends a year and nothing else. I mean, they have quite a few of them have proper jobs or various things that they do because they have to.
Yeah, yeah. I forgot where I was going with that, but yeah, like you said, it's you're doing a fantastic job there. The other I don't want to say controversy, but something that came up about the W Series was that I mean they're giving away a decent amount of prize money, aren't they? 1.5. Well, the champion's getting 500 grand.
Yeah, yeah.
But wasn't there an issue with Jamie Chadwick where a Formula One team, or was it a Formula Two team, uh, didn't take her on for, you can correct me if I'm wrong, a free practice run or something because there just wasn't enough money? And there was this talk that should the prize money for the W Series be increased, because if the W Series is here to be a platform as a stepping stone into F1 for women, the lack of sponsorship that is obvious for female drivers, does it have to come down to more prize money to get them into an F1 team?
Well, the problem is that running 18 cars at 8 Formula One weekends, which includes Singapore, Mexico, Miami, and Austin, there's very little left when you've paid for that and it doesn't cost them a penny for airfares, hotels,
Oh,
food.
really?
They all they have to provide is a helmet.
Ah, okay.
They don't have to. They don't have to pay. They get themselves. All they have to do is provide their own helmet and get themselves to the airport that they're going from.
Right.
So we're pretty. Yeah, we haven't got a bottomless pit. So if you work out the cost of that, and then a healthy prize fund, but yeah, it's there is a stopping point on how much money. Yeah, but I mean, you think how many male racing drivers can go racing and it not cost them a penny? They don't have to, or they don't have to find a sponsor or
That's non-existent.
no. So yeah, I mean, yes, it'd be lovely if we gave them more prize money, but as I say, um, I don't think if you did the work out how much it would cost. I mean, how much does it cost to do an F3 season these days? 1 million?
Yeah, 1.5
Yeah.
plus. Yeah.
So when you
You're
think what we're already giving them,
mm. The is there a sponsorship program to attract female fans from that? Because I remember about 5 years, 6 years ago, we were looking after a young lady driver, Natasha Sita, and she was winning races left, right, and center in the Asian regional series. And we took a different approach in that we thought, well, you go to these because at that time the series she was in was a support race for the Formula One Grand Prix in Malaysia and China. And we thought, well, why don't we attack this in a different way? If you think about it, at a live Grand Prix, you could say 50% of the audience, and even on TV, 50% of the audience uh, are women, because they're the wives, girlfriends that are like tagging along, but also fans. So, wouldn't it be wise to approach female-oriented brands to support this? Is that something that's
I can
happening?
assure you there isn't a female-oriented brand that our team has not contacted.
Mm.
Trust me, and that's the one thing we always say. For some reason, the big sponsors have never been ready, with the exception of Puma and Heineken, to put their money in a women's series. And I mean, let's be honest, you'd think, oh, let's go to all these cosmetics and all these female oriented, and you would think, wouldn't you?
Mm. It's about
But there,
education, I suppose, isn't it? It comes all back
yeah,
down to education.
yeah. But it's all, for some reason, it is the way it is, and that's one of the biggest things that's stopping women getting on is the lack of sponsorship. And when the various big corporations turn around and say, well, we're going to put our money into Jamie Chadwick and not, I don't know, Alex Albon
Mm.
or be nice. But we have got obviously a commercial team out there talking to people non-stop.
That happened with Susie Wolf though, right? When it was announced, I mean, there was a few months. It was 3-4 months in advance that it was announced that she was going to have the free practice one
Yeah,
drive at one of the Grand Prix, and you would have thought, look, this would have been absolute prime if
yeah,
a sponsor took advantage of that, even though it was FP1. There was so much media build up to that event because it was the first time in what 30 odd years that a woman had hit the F1 track in an official session. And I personally think that that would have been a quick, lovely return there. Throw in X millions
yeah,
of dollars into that and
yeah.
right off the back of that.
But yeah, I
That's-
wish we had an answer to it.
Mm,
Yeah,
it's frustrating, right? That must
it,
be the main frustrating thing of what you guys are going through right
yeah,
now. It's the
it
product's
frustrates.
there,
Yeah,
it's major, it's exciting, it's fantastic. It's no different other than the drivers are not don't have that level of fame as
and have
F1.
you seen if you see the amount of coverage and publicity we get compared to F2 and F3,
Mm,
and we're there in all the major publications around the world on all the various channels.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, isn't the head of Pepsi a woman? It's an Indian woman who's the CEO of Pepsi. I mean, there's plenty of big multinational corporations who have female CEOs now.
Oh yeah,
It's got to
they've
be something
obviously done their
around here.
homework and didn't think that females in sport get them the return that the males do.
Well, that's another debate on its own, right? It's well, yeah, that's the answer. It's
Yeah,
the bums on seats and the viewing numbers, isn't it?
yeah.
Ronda Rousey said that. I remember she had a press conference after one of her fights. You've heard of Ronda Rousey, the one of those cage fighters,
Oh
um,
yes,
and she was asked at the press conference. This was at the height of the equal payment
yeah,
issue, and she was honest. She said, "No, I'm happy and I accept the level of payment I'm receiving because the men are the ones who are bringing in the sponsorship dollars. It's the men who are selling the tickets, putting the bums on seats. So it's that. But it's with F1, sorry, with the W series, it's the same damn bums on seats, isn't it? At the races that you're supporting, there's
yeah.
there's no there's nothing separate about that. It's yeah, it's just one of those bang your head against the wall moments, I suppose. It's we need to come up with some scientific analysis algorithm to
Yeah.
do this. Uh,
There's a lot of people working on it, and they haven't found the solution yet.
is W Series owned and controlled by FIA or is it a private series?
Well, we're not an FIA series. We're
Oh,
not
right.
like Formula 2 and Formula 3. No, we're obviously FIA affiliated,
Yeah.
but we're not an FIA. No, we're not an FIA series.
Right. Okay. And so, wh- what's the future for the W Series then? Is there going to be a point where there isn't going to be any solution to bringing in more money for the women and getting up to the ladder? Because I mean, we all know that F1 these days isn't just about talent; it's about the size of your wallet. Um, does the W Series have a strong future? I mean, remember
Absolutely.
you were in
Ab-
A1 GP.
Oh,
You know what happened with A1 GP there, and a
that's
bunch of
another matter.
other series that came along, Cowboys. Um, where do you see the W Series moving forward?
I think we are where we are in the world today with women in all sports becoming more and more relevant and popular. I think we could never have come at a better time. And we are, Catherine is determined. She's the most determined lady I've ever known, and we won't be giving in. We'll be working non-stop on improving visibility for all females in motorsport, and work non-stop on making sure that in the end these major sponsors see that they can get as much, if not more, out of sponsoring a female series than they will with all male. And I think that there is a sea swing going with, say, with people like Lewis and Seb supporting diversity. Obviously, people like Liberty, and I think that it's people are starting to see it. Rome wasn't built in a day. You think how old is Formula One, and look what it's taken them to get to where they are now, 71 years or something. This is our third season.
Yeah.
We've got to be realistic, but we'll never give up. We're determined that we've set ourselves a goal, and it is reachable.
Just as I know you got to head off
Yeah.
soon, but there's I've been inundated with this question, and a lot of people want to have your insight. There's a lot of women involved in motorsport in the lower levels, and they have the positions of press officers and PR and communications and things, and they would like to know your take on what makes a good press officer, PR and communications, and how can you get to that level for something as big as F1?
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult because obviously there are only 10 teams in F1, and so there are limited positions. I mean, in my day, there was one press officer. so there'd be 10 press officers, where today, a communications department would perhaps have 5 or 6, and then you've got social media. So you could have a dozen people working that department. So obviously there are more than there used to be. It's a difficult one. I always say to people, they say, "Oh, I want to work in Formula One." I say, "Well, start in motorsport, get yourself in, be determined, offer to do anything, even if you sometimes have to work, just for your expenses." It's you just have to be determined and not give in. I mean, I've seen young girls come along who have contacted me. They've been at university, and I've helped them with their thesis and then finding work experience and those sort of things. And it's just, unfortunately, it is more and more difficult because so many people aspire to do it, but just have to be determined. Make sure that you take every opportunity and make yourself known to people. It's a I think it's like in any glamorous sport,
Mm.
that it's a matter of proving that you're a hard worker. You enjoy what you're doing, and you'll be there. You'll be the first person in the morning and the last person out, and yeah, leave the partying to everybody else. But yeah, it's and there's no easy way. I don't say, "Oh, we'll go and do this at university or that," because obviously there's lots of different ways into the sport.
Mm.
I mean, I've known people who have ended up in the communication department, and they started, working on the motorhome. But it's always, if you can get in, even if it's a job that you think, "Oh, I'd much rather do that job," get in at that job, because if once you're in, you then make contacts, and you work your way up.
Yeah, exactly. I liked how I like how you said F1 being the glamorous sport, and that's another thing actually people don't realize, or the fans don't realize, is yeah, they see Monaco, they see the private jets, uh, that's all they see in the media, right, is the glitz and glam. But when you're on the inside, it is grueling, it is quite often thankless, um, long horrible hours. You really can't have a private life back at home, can you, with all the travel that's going on. um and yeah, it can be hard and tough and horrible, can't it?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you say you have to give up a lot of well, friends who you'd say, "Oh, well, can you come here?" I mean, I can't explain the number of weddings and funerals and those sort of place things that I've had to say no to, but
Mm.
that's what it is.
Yeah. Well, Anne, I know you got to go, but I'd love to have you on again and follow up with the progress of the W Series season and any developments you have. Uh, what you've been doing in motorsport has been absolutely fantastic. Everyone looks up to you. You've done an amazing job, and you surely are a true inspiration for women who not only want to succeed in motorsport but in any industry, really. You've been a trailblazer, and I greatly appreciate you coming on to the show. And thank you very much. And I will hopefully see you down in Singapore.
Yeah,
And
looking forward to that, partying or whatever.
yep. And if you guys want to take me over to America, well, yep, we can sort that as well. Um,
Ooh, okay.
but
No, well, thank you for giving the time for me to talk about W Series, something I'm passionate about. And yeah, I hope I happily keep you informed. And yeah, let's hope one of these days you'll say, "Oh well, what was it like seeing your first driver in F1?"
wonderful. All right, and thank you very much, and enjoy your summer break.
Thank you very much indeed, and you take care.
Hello, motorsport fans. Don't forget to subscribe, turn on your notifications, and like this video so we can keep the channel going.